Welcome. This is the third session of the Organizational Strength Series that's motivating employees in a downturn. I'm Mary Price, the Events and Marketing Manager at the Shingo Institute. It's great to have you with us today. We have some new people to the series, so I just wanted to point out that if you have a question to ask Mike, go ahead and use the chat feature, which is at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the session. With that, I'll turn the time over to you, Mike.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Did my best as I was putting it together to not overdo it with the amount of content today so we could take the questions at the end. The questions were great last time, and I really appreciated all of them, and they came pretty rapid fire. But this topic of motivating employees in a downturn is really a rich topic, and it's a deep topic. It really caused me to go back, reflect on the 10 years I spent turning companies around, maybe what was successful as I did it, what wasn't successful, what are things that I tried that didn't work, what really resonated with the approach in each turnaround that I did. And what I've tried to do is to take a big topic like motivation and really boil it down to a couple of key things that worked for me. Not saying this is the only way or the only approach to motivation, but really wanted to maybe give a bit of my spin on it and a couple of key things that I found to be really helpful. So as we get into this, I know we do have some people that are new to this. I put this slide on the first session, this kind of 3 secrets to a turnaround. I put this in here because I really felt that in a turnaround environment, some people really get the wrong impression of what it means to be in a turnaround, or at least in a crisis, what it takes from your mindset, or really what I found to be successful in each one that we were able to take an organization that experienced some trouble and get them back onto some solid footing. So when I put these 3 secrets in there, I've really been working through them. We talked a lot the first session on principles and kind of understanding principles, and that it's as easy to lead by principles as it is to lead for profit, so that there really was not this trade-off between going after profitability or reestablishing health in the company and doing what's right by the organization, the customer, and the people. Second, in the last session, we talked about focusing on the critical few. This idea of taking everything that may be wrong or everything that you could focus on and really being crystal clear about what you need to accomplish. And that really was around number 2. Now, the third statement, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be passionate, has resonated with a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of comments on it, and I'm glad that it touched you, and you found that a useful statement. And I really think that statement itself is where we start to bridge over into this idea of what is the key to motivation, or at least what are some of the keys to motivating people in a downturn that I found to really rally people around this idea that we had some insurmountable odds. I really knew and believed that we were going to accomplish those things, but we were all going to have to work together to do that. So I want to take that theme that was in number 3, and I really want to look to expand that today. And the thing that I'd really like to get across is that, leadership is critical in times like this to motivating people, but leadership, what I found is that I needed to expand the idea of leadership to be not about short-term stabilization and focus on profitability, but also about bringing people out of the day-to-day crisis, out of the worry and the fear that they had every time they showed up, and more into this idea about us being passionate about what our true purpose was, what we were going to accomplish as an organization, and specifically as a team or a group of people that were going to commit to each other and commit to the outcomes we were trying to achieve. Now, to do that, really, as I thought about it, it was really a difference in the orientation of what I was asking my team to rally around. So the question I put forth to you, if you think about your situation right now or situations you've been in when there's a crisis, are you rallying your team around this idea that we need to pay the price for profitability? Or are you aligning your team to passionately pursue a higher purpose? That was a fundamental question that, while I may not have expressed that to each and every one of my leaders and my people, it was definitely the vision that I needed to bring to the organization if I was going to get everyone to rally around turning it around. It seemed to me that in most cases, with the leaders I met when we got into a crisis, what they were really trying to do was to convince the organization that we all had to pay a price in lost jobs, a price in lost flexibility, that we were sacrificing something from ourselves for the greater good of profitability in the short term. And that to me was kind of a zero sum game. I mean, yes, we had to go after profitability. Yes, it was important to reestablish strength in the organization. But I wanted people to not focus on that, about sacrificing and paying a price, but really about what they were going to do to come together to pursue something larger than ourselves. And as you see in my message about motivation, that's really where I started my work on motivating people to be part of this change. So when it comes to understanding motivation, I don't think things have changed that much. I mean, these are stats that are taken. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. There's a ton of great work done by Gallup and others about the problems with engagement, the power of engagement, really what engagement does from an organization. The first stat: 74% of people want a job where they feel like their work matters. That came from a LinkedIn research study that they did. But from Gallup, they found that 21% of people are managed in a way that motivates them to do great work. Now, the thing about this is that I don't find that this is that much different whether the organization I was running was in a good situation, it was not a crisis, or whether or not it was a crisis. This idea that what people are looking for as time goes on is a greater desire for purpose and a lower value on money. I really sought to tap into that, if you will, in a turnaround environment. I found that to be really, really important. Now, in terms of the money, people were definitely afraid. They definitely needed to be taken care of. There was definitely a fear of the future. But what I needed to do to really motivate them was to get them less focused on that and more focused on my vision for our true purpose, what we were trying to do together. Okay. Now, when I did that, though, there are some unique aspects of a turnaround environment that make it a bit more challenging, perhaps. The first, we talked a little bit about this last time on the last session. It's this fear of the future. It's this idea that people really are afraid as to whether their job's going to be there. They're afraid of what tomorrow brings. They walk in with fears about whether the company's going to survive, about how it will look in the future. That fear turns into really a lot of reading the tea leaves and really almost reading into things that may or may not be there. But that idea that they go into fight or flight makes the message or the messaging of purpose a bit more difficult. And you have to be aware of that in terms of, when you're a leader, how you design your message and how you communicate it. The second issue that made motivation so difficult was this idea of defending the castle. That when you're in a turnaround environment, the most typical thing that I saw with people that had been there a long time, specifically with leaders, I hate to say it, was this idea that they were not open to change to deal with the situation as it sat right now, to really deal with the circumstances we found themselves in. They spent all their time defending their castle, these things that we did in the past, why it should have worked, why it wasn't our fault, why we were a victim to our circumstances. And that relentless defending the castle, if I wasn't careful about that, that could really overshadow this message of motivation and of change that I was trying to convey and that I was really trying to build upon. Finally, I hope this one makes sense, but finally, it was this idea of the most common thing that I saw with leaders or with organizations was almost to pull back from sharing information and to protect people from reality. It was this idea that in a crisis, leaders weren't sure if they should really paint the picture of what was really happening out there. They weren't sure if they should really be open and honest and transparent about, some of their own fears and about what the future might lead to. And So this natural idea that you needed to protect people from reality was really actually counterintuitive. It really was counter to motivating people. What I experienced was that people really wanted to know the truth. They really wanted to understand what I saw and the real challenges ahead. And if they understood those, but were also empowered with the ability to do something about it, then we had a powerful combination for them to put some responsibility, some autonomy together with a real sense of what reality was. So it did me no good to try to hide people from it or shelter people from what I saw or what I felt was, our fears or our rate of success going forward. It actually created a lot more trouble in the organization. What I needed to do was to share openly and honest not only what reality was, but most importantly, how committed I was and the vision for the future. So, really, in a crisis, what we need to motivate people is they need to believe in you as a manager, you as a leader, but they also need to believe in the mission. They don't need to be sheltered from the realities of the situation, but they need to be able to tap into something bigger than what they're seeing right now. And a great example of that, or one that came to mind, was John Wooden. We all know his accomplishments as a coach, 10 championships, as a coach, as a leader. But what his real mission was really promoting and helping people through this pyramid of success. So let's talk about then, because we are on limited time, my approach to motivation, or what I was really trying to do with when I was coming into a company to motivate. There were three things. I boiled this down to three things just to keep it simple for today. The first was selling myself on the vision, selling myself on the vision. I can't emphasize enough that if you aren't confident in your vision for the future, if you are not confident in the approach that you're taking to get out of the crisis, there's nothing you can do that is really going to help people be motivated and believe in you. That is going to come across. I remember an example of a guy years ago that I knew, that was the sales manager of a big car dealership, a Ford dealership, and was struggling to motivate his people, was struggling to get them and accomplish the goals and get them where they needed to go. And what I found most interesting is he is the head of a Ford dealership, but he was driving a Mazda. And I asked him about it one day. I said, Doug, I don't get it. What's with the Mazda? He says, oh, it's a great car. It's a great car. I have no issue with it. And I said, as I'm sitting on the outside of here just looking in and we're having a conversation about your struggles, it seems to me that you've got to first sell yourself. If you're trying to sell everybody else on why they should buy a Ford, but you're driving a Mazda, that's the first and foremost problem that you have. So the first thing that I needed to do, leveraging a little bit off what we talked about with last time, which is focusing on the critical few, is I had to have a plan and a vision for the future, for what we were really doing here that I believed in wholeheartedly, that got me up in the morning. If I didn't have that, then it was going to be hard for others to believe in me and to follow me in light of the fear and the other things that they were experiencing. Number two, I can't overemphasize the need for connection. We're going to talk about this theme more in Lead with Humility, the next section, but I went out of my way to connect deeply with my people, to understand what really moved them, to understand which parts of the organization or which parts of the challenge ahead would motivate them. Did they feel like they were most suited to help us with? So rather than have a corporate speak with the vision and information out there, hopefully to motivate them, I really tried to each and every individual get to know them as best as I could and get to know what motivated them. I went out of my way to connect with people. The last thing I did was to really structure our environment for daily winning. I really needed to structure our environment so that people could understand, number one, what can we do each and every day to win? And number two, how well did we do today? Okay, again, the idea is every time they came in, they already had their fears. They were already well aware of the issues that we had. So that could be all consuming. The problems that came up every day could be all consuming. the anticipation or the anxiety of the unknown could really be debilitating for leaders and for people. And so what I needed to do is to really boil all that down to what can we control today? What can we do or contribute today that is going to align to our vision of winning in the future? Now, an important part of the win, and we talked about this a little bit last time, there's business results that we need to win on, but I really, to motivate them, I wanted them to understand what winning meant to me in terms of what we were really doing, our purpose of turning this company around. So, what is winning in a context like this? And I came back to this over and over and over again with my people. Number one, winning to me was being part of a team that accomplishes great things. It was really that experience of feeling confidence and having your chest out and knowing that you did something valuable and significant as part of a team to those around you. That's what winning meant to us. That's the first thing. Number two, winning was about saving a company that supported our friends, supported our family, and supported the community. So I took it very personally that what we were there was to save an institution, save an organization that really provided for the people that I know, it provided for the people that we cared about, and it has a positive impact for the community, sorry. So I came back to that over and over again, that was a part of what winning meant. And third, winning meant creating a way that people could have a sense of pride in their work and who they work for, that people dynamic. I wanted people through their contribution, through the opportunities that they had to make change, through the aggressive challenges and goals that we had and the ability to affect positive movement on those. I wanted them to take pride from that. I wanted them to have a sense of pride in who they were, the contribution they made, but as also a leadership team, I wanted them to take pride in who they worked for as well. So when I talked about winning and I talked about motivation, I talked about winning and I was very clear what winning meant in terms of what the organization needed to do structurally, operationally, financially to survive. But equally and probably more important was what winning meant to me in terms of what we were going to do as a group of people committed to these common outcomes. And that was an important part of motivating. All right. So structuring daily winning then, this is the part that those of you who know me and know my approach or the 4 key systems, you're going to know all these questions backward and forwards. This is a bit bigger than we can get to in a couple of minutes. But if we take this idea that I've gone from having a vision that I can believe in, tying it to a purpose, defining winning in a way that is more motivating in terms of how people can contribute, but what it means back to them and their community and their families, then I needed to structure my management system so that these 4 questions could be answered by everyone in the organization on a daily basis. Number 1, what does it mean to win? Number 2, relative to systems that we have and feedback I receive, can I answer the question, are we winning? Third, if we're not winning, what are we doing about it? What actions are we taking today to make today a little bit better than it was yesterday, to get us a little bit closer to that vision, to the outcome we're trying to achieve? And then finally, not only as leaders, but as fellow team members, how can I help you win more often? So I really found that by defining and aligning people to this idea that we are going to be winners together, winners in our work and winners in life, then I needed to structure my management system so that I could answer these questions at all times and that everybody could answer these questions. Now, these are big questions. These are questions that you can apply to a variety of different contexts. Now, in one case, what I really wanted to do was to keep that simple then for people. So I gave you 4 examples of the types of things we were looking at in one, what winning looked like on a daily basis. And with this, I'll kind of wrap up. This is not a hard and fast what it needs to look like in every organization, but these were things that we could control. Number 1, we could control the work that we were doing, and we could physically see and touch rework on a daily basis. and arrive at strategies and ideas and improvements to reduce the problems that we were having. Number two, while we may not be able to affect sales, while we may not be able to guarantee we were going to grow through sales, what we could do was guarantee or control the amount of prospecting or activities we were doing, the effort we were putting out there to generate sales. Third, we could really focus on customer experience. We could connect with our customer service people. We could rally around that, and we could really get the voice of the customer and determine each and every day, what did we do to enhance the experience of the people that we got to serve today? And finally, I left this a big one. It sounds big, of cultural change, but there were indicators that I had our leaders and our people looking for to see if we were really starting to come together as a team in a stronger way, if we were starting to rally around supporting each other, if we were taking action that aligned with that larger mission. And those were indicators of a daily basis, whether or not that culture was starting to move in the direction that we wanted it to. This is how I took the structure of the management system, aligned or connected with those four key questions, and then boiled it down to things that people could see, affect, and experience, report out on each and every day. So motivation in that context then really became a situation of, number one, selling myself on the vision, where we're going and why I believed in it so strongly, having a mission or defining our win in a way that was not going to be just about the business results, where we really needed them. We needed those results, but also how we were going to get there. What was in it for them in terms of something that they could be passionate about and feel purpose in. And then finally, how did I use my daily management system to boil that down to simple and repeatable things that we could see each and every day to know if we were getting a little bit closer to that? Okay. So in terms of next steps, where I might suggest you go with that is to really look at that question about winning. What does it look like for you? Is winning focused balance between, really that mission and what motivates people, or is it really a little bit more financial and operational right now? Or has it gone the other way? Is it all about making it purposeful, but I don't have also a win that is going to reestablish my profitability? But that's where I'd really take this next. We've got a few minutes left. I see some questions coming up here. Okay, where's the line between what you share with people and what not to share, and how do you handle the risk of discouragement? It's a great question. I felt that discouragement was really, really aligned to whether or not they believed in me and saw my confidence and my vision. That's really what I saw. So I believed in sharing a lot. I believed in being super honest. But as I was honest and realistic about the future, I would put that right together with where my optimism and my hope was coming from with our ability to accomplish our goals. I'm not going to say that you don't have discouragement. I'm not going to say that you don't have people that don't buy into it. Thing about a turnaround environment is that your most qualified or capable people are also your most mobile. So you're really trying to sell them on why they should stay and help you get there. But if they believed in me and my approach, and we'll talk about how I did that a bit more in the next session, then I could combine that with open and honest. Is it human nature to want to know and have certainty, especially in turbulent times? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it is human nature to want to have certainty and stability, especially in turbulent times. I think that, part of our goals in initial phase is to reestablish stability. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do, that stability, not only in the fundamentals of the organization or stability in terms of what we're doing to survive, but also stability in leadership. I really felt like, the plan, the focus, and the vision that I had bringing in there was about providing stability on the people side, to trust in what we were doing and to know that this was going to have that constancy of purpose over time. On the basis of transparency, I have just finished a new book entitled Employee Empowerment, the prime component of sustainability. While motivation is important, where does your model fit into the engaging people in owning the process? Great question. It is about, when you look at that daily management system about what does it mean to win, those 4 questions, it is about getting people, it is about giving people autonomy and ownership in helping us accomplish our goals. It's a key part of motivation, especially motivation over time. I would say that initially more of the motivation was needing to believe in where we were going and why they should stay a part of the process. But that has to be backed up by actually getting results. And the more that you can allow people to roll up their sleeves, be part of the change, affect the results in a way where they've delivered on it, that's where their pride's going to come from. That's where that motivation is going to come from. What do you say to leaders who want to put reward systems in place to motivate people? That's an interesting question. That's a hard question because what I really want to say, which is not going to be very popular, is that as many times as I've seen an organization say we use our compensation or reward systems to get where we need to go, and this is how it motivates people, I don't think that when you're talking about real motivation, I don't think the research backs that up. It's not what I experienced. Now, on top of that, in a turnaround environment, I never had the ability to be super honest to reward the right activity. I never had flexibility or the money to be able to look at the compensation system or the reward as the way I was going to try to motivate people. So maybe I had the advantage of saying, if I didn't have that, what did I have? And as we saw that chart, as the value of money, in people's minds going down over time, but that value of purpose going up, I think that what we did is just tapped into that. Can your approach work from the bottom or the middle up, or does it have to begin at the top? Great question. As I said in the last session, I was the one that I was in the position of leading the turnaround. That did not mean that I could do it alone, like I would have a vision and that I'm the one who does it. I really did have to encourage my leaders and sell them on why this approach was going to work or why it was going to be better or how this approach was going to reestablish profitability for the organization quickly. I do believe that the approach to being focused and clear on your outcomes, aligning people in a way that gets their passion and their pride and purpose moving toward productivity can work at any level. I've definitely coached and taught team leaders how to do it, middle managers how to do it, and all the way up to executives how to do it. So it can work, yes. All right, Mary. Whew, man, good questions. I got a couple minutes. Are there any more?
I got one more question that came through, and they want to know if production rework was monitored daily.
So, one more time.
If production rework was monitored daily.
Yes, it was. So in this case, we decided to make it really visual. So it's going to be hard for me to describe, but we had our main production plan, our main area, and there was kind of a main aisle that went down. I know you can't see it. I'm just picturing it in my mind what it looked like. And so what we arrived at, what we were going to do is we were going to each day push all the rework into the aisle. Basically, everything that was going to have to be reworked was in the aisle. So you could visually get a sense of how much and where it was coming from. It was a great exercise in humility. I mean, we can talk about that. We can talk about that later. But it was also just a way that we could see, based on what was pushed over time, the impact of what we were doing. It was really powerful. Okay, so now how do you make rework visible in a digital work environment? I think it's a challenge. I guess what I would say in that is that I tried really hard not to have the chart or a chart be what was trying to motivate people or what was trying to bring real visibility to an issue. So I really tried, like I said, by putting rework in the aisles, we had information that you could generate a report based on it, but I wanted something that made it more visual, more impactful, and really right out in front of us. So in your digital environment, if you can start with that idea of how am I going to make this easy to understand, very overt, and impactful in the way that it's presented to people, that's what I would start with. But a lot of the charts I found were just almost complicated for the chart's sake, rather than being something that really touched people and made an emotional connection. Looked like another message came up, Mary.
Yep, we got one more. They ask, any wisdom when a middle layer of leaders only want to drive costs by cutting people and inventory quickly?
Michael, good to hear from you, man. Any wisdom? No. I think that's not meant to be. I think that's not meant to be a simple yes or no question. But I will tell you, in a crisis environment, that's what everybody wants to go to. It's the quick hits. It's looking at headcount. I will not tell you that I didn't have to look at headcount. I did. That's a whole other issue of how you do your plan and how you deal with that. But what I was really, really leveraging and what I was really working on was this idea that we were strong, we were far more strong together, finding ways that we were going to add value and do more than we were by continuing to look for ways to cut people, cut hours, cut heads, cut inventory. That just further served to reduce people down to what fears they already had, the things that they were troubled by, the reason why they might not want to stay. And I did all things to try to keep us focused on that larger picture of what we were going to do to grow, what we were going to do to flourish, and what I needed from people, the kind of contribution and the kind of innovation and the kind of ideas that I was going to need from people for us to get there. So I said that early on, when I turned companies around, we had guys that were workout guys, and then there were people that were more turnaround. The workout guys were the ones who went in and they looked at the balance sheet, the profit and loss, the cash flow statement. They started slashing it, cutting it, selling off assets, reducing headcount, and in essence, wanted to reestablish profitability in the short term and then move on. The problem was, in that environment, so many times the organization was actually much weaker for that exercise. It was much weaker for that exercise. So I realistically had to right size organizations. There were times where I went in and we were still at a size that was, twice what we were doing in revenue, and we weren't there anymore. But every decision that we made was really about building our strength for the future. How are we going to do that? And we could not do that if we were constantly cutting people, if we were constantly messing around with their livelihoods, if we were constantly reminding them that they were part of a profitability equation rather than a prime driver of, our purpose over the long term. I think I've overstayed my welcome by 3 minutes, Mary.
That's true. We are out of time. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. I know there's a couple questions that came through. We'll get those to Mike, and he can send out an email to you with the answers. But thanks for attending. Just as a reminder, we're not going to be meeting next Monday, so our next session will be on the 22nd of June. Hope to see you over there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See you soon. Bye-bye.